So how are you finding WebSummit so far?
I'm loving it. I've been coming to WebSummit since 2018. In 2019, I headlined with Edward Snowden, and I've done Collision, WebSummit Rio, and in general, the way that they put things together is so special. Really, all of the thought leaders are in town, so I was really excited to be invited to speak at VNTR while I'm in town. It's really a very high-level group of people, a select bunch that are out of the WebSummit arena here for this today, and it was really an amazing addition and good use of time.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I think it's been really, really interesting to understand like where you come from and like what you stand for, obviously like bringing the truth to the surface. So it'd be great to understand a little bit more about that and then also what you're doing these days.
Absolutely. So it helps a little bit to talk about my background. I was in the UK training as a human rights barrister when I joined Cambridge Analytica. So I didn't really plan to go full-time into tech. I was writing my PhD on something called preventive diplomacy, which means how can you prevent crises before they happen, as opposed to just working in international criminal justice and punishment after something's happened. So I realized that as much as I love studying international human rights law, this wasn't a legal question, this was a data science question. How much data did who have and who was modeling it to get it into the hands of a president or a prime minister or an ambassador or the head of a UN department where they could say, someone's crossed a red line and we now need to do something. We can see through the data that something's coming. We can either prevent it now or something will happen. And so I didn't know enough about data science in order to complete my PhD. So I got a part-time consultancy at Cambridge Analytica while I was a full-time PhD student. And therefore, I didn't come into data science thinking I'm joining a tech company to come and make money. It was a very, very different perspective. And so while I was there, of course, I got very wrapped into it. It was my first ever permanent salaried job at a company. I'd only ever worked for nonprofits, charities, United Nations departments, NGOs. And so I got really overwhelmed, learned a lot more about data than I bargained for. And as I started to see more and more red flags, I really came to the full conclusion that the way that the data science industry functions is a massive set of human rights violations. And so to see it from that angle allowed me to go through the whistleblowing process with the legal knowledge and the integrity to know what I was whistleblowing on fully and to develop sophisticated campaigns around how to change things.
Yeah. I remember that a few years ago there was a documentary that you were in, and I remember the moment that you realized that you could look at your calendar. You realize like you had the calendar of all the meetings, and that was like a really interesting moment because you kind of look at a calendar and you think, oh, it's just like meaningless data, but then it's really, really important in your case, right? Mm-hmm. And then that was specifically, was that about the Brexit campaign? Like, I don't know how much you want to go, I mean, you can edit this, but I don't know how much you want to go into that and kind of what made you want to blow the whistle? Like, was there a particular thing or was it just like the straw that broke the camel's back?
It's really hard to talk about this given that Trump just won again, but it was really when Trump won the election. I was not working on the campaign. I had helped win the contract, but I wasn't working on the campaign as kind of a lifelong Democrat. And everyone was, of course, in shock. I think us at Cambridge Analytica were a little less in shock than other people, of course. We had modeled that he had at least a 30% chance of winning, which is a good chance. Everyone else said 1%, 2%, 3%. We said 30 at least. And so when it happened, we asked the team that had worked on the campaign to give us a postmortem and actually explain what they had done so that we could truly understand how this happened. And it took them about a month to put that together. So a month after the election, they gave us a 2-day-long presentation, 8 hours each day, from the campaign and the super PACs, which were all run by Cambridge Analytica. And they showed all of the data, where they took it from, how they got it, what they did with it, the content, the ads, the strategies. And there were 2 parts of this presentation that really were, way more than a red flag. on day one, they presented this chart, which I originally published through my parliamentary disclosures. So the British Parliament was the first place this was published. And it was a chart where there's an X and Y axis of how likely you are to vote and whether or not you are more likely to vote for Hillary or Trump. And those who were modeled to be less than 50% likely to vote.
Undecidable, right?
Persuadables.
Persuadables.
Exactly.
Right.
And so the people who were less than 50% likely to vote, but if they were to vote, they would vote for Hillary. In the chart, they called them the deterrence group. Deterrence. And I mean, that's voter suppression. That's saying if you send enough negative campaigns about Hillary to these people, they won't even go to the polling booth because they'll never be convinced to vote for Trump. But if they are disinterested in Hillary, they just won't vote. Voter suppression is illegal almost everywhere in the world. So as soon as they explained that chart, I started recording the meeting. Day two, they presented.
So that was day one.
That was day one.
Wow.
It's pretty intense. And in day two, the super PAC presented that with all of the money that they had raised, that they were first deploying funds just to do the psychographic testing that Cambridge is famous for. And they saw that the campaigns that were fear-based messaging targeted at neurotics were the most successful, at least 20 to 30% more successful than anything else. So they spent the rest of the funds only deploying fear-based messaging towards neurotics, and the Defeat Crooked Hillary campaign was born.
Wow. So if you receive one of those ads, you are considered a neurotic, essentially.
Yeah, some of them are really dark, but sometimes when I've shown them to journalists or presented them at conferences, some people remember them and saw it because they were very dark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's obviously still going on today, right? I mean, but maybe more so because of AI, right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess my question to you is, are you? I mean, I don't think the answer is yes, but are you worried about AI, and what do you think we should do about it? I know it's a big question, and I apologize.
Very worried. When I was still at Cambridge, we were doing very basic AI, where we were able to run AI-driven split and A/B testing in order to really understand what was working with people or not, with AI-driven variations of the kind of like the sepia tone or not of the picture, the music that was in the background, the color of the button, all of that
it's like
stuff.
treating like a lab rat almost.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely put it that way. And so millions and millions of these variations would go out to the American public until we really found out exactly what worked for everyone. So sometimes millions of one type of ad would be shown before we'd figure out what was the best for each group of people. And over the Trump campaign, there were over 10,000 different campaigns that were run. Traditional campaigns, you usually run between 4 and 6 campaigns.
Wow.
Not 10,000.
Wow. Yeah. It's absolutely insane. And I know you're in demand, so I don't want to keep you much longer. But I guess I'm asking everyone this. You know, we've had crypto, we've had AI. What do you think is the next big thing?
Well, Bitcoin hit 93K today, so I'm pretty sure Bitcoin is still the next biggest thing for me. But I think one of the most exciting things that we have to look forward to is true digital asset law and legislation that can be backed by technology. That's really what I've been working on since going through the whistleblowing process, getting digital asset legislation, and I mean definitions of ownership of personal data to blockchain tokens. It's all encrypted, ones and zeros. It's the same thing that we're talking about, right? And so getting that legislation and getting the technology functionality where you can truly own your digital identity, own your data, have tracking and traceability, true consent mechanisms, and the ability to monetize your data for yourself and own that value, I think is the most exciting thing that is coming, because we now have legislation that is backing that, and we also now have new technologies that allow that to be implementable. And I think one of the biggest struggles since leaving Cambridge Analytica has been knowing what we need to fix the problem and not actually having the technology to do so. I've done a lot of work on the legislative and regulatory side, but really in the end, you can write as many laws as you want. If you don't have easy to use tech solutions that allow those things to be possible, then it's not real. So investing in data ownership technologies has been something that I've been very focused on, making sure that companies that have solution to any part of the problem, from the actual digital identity to tracking and traceability to quantum resistant encryption to even data savings accounts where you can spend your data as money, save it, earn compound interest on your data, lend against the future value of your own data. All of those things are real now.
Wow.
So that's pretty exciting to me.
Wow, I never even knew about any of that. So thanks so much for your time. That's been amazing. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Thank you.